Well, it's better late than never, and just when some of you thought I was done with Nikke, the next major Pilgrim unit drops, and well, if I didn't make a guide on Crown, then I feel I will be doing the entire fanbase a disservice. So, with 1 week left of the banner, here is one of the next major support units that will shake up your game. My name is Psyche, let's get started. In case you're wondering, no, I didn't get the $50 skins. I definitely learned my lesson from 2B. It's just not worth it if we consider that Snowbreak's $20 ones have more, interactivity. Anyways, Crown is the newest Pilgrim to join the Cool Kids Club. She is a Type 2 minigun user, Defender class Iron Coat. Now, if you've been hanging around the forums, it's no surprise that she also happens to be one of the best supporters in the game right now. We'll start by examining her kit. I will be using my skill leveling criteria, but just a little heads up, all 3 of Crown's skills will receive the high priority rating, because she's just that busted. If you're a newer player or hurting for resources, you can stop by level 7 for now, but even as a low spender, I would suggest slowly inching your way towards maxing out all 3. But let's actually go into her kits in detail so we can understand why she's so highly regarded. Skill 1 is a massive attack and reload speed buff for allies that previously used their burst skills activated upon entering full burst. This means on the very first rotation, you can't expect to activate the attack up, unless the unit is a Type 1 or somehow casts it before Crown, such as Tia, X-Rupee, and in some regards Red Hood. If any allies haven't activated a burst yet, their defense will increase in place of attack, which is, worse, but hey, you only have to deal with it for the first rotation. In both scenarios, Crown will also buff reload speed, up to a whopping 44% when fully maxed out. This, alongside the attack up, are some pretty crazy numbers. Now, how reload speed works is that when you get it up to 100%, you would think that it just doubles your reload speed. But no, it actually just makes it instant, kinda like how Parvati and Summer Anis interact. Now, obviously, Crown can't single-handedly make your teammates reload like the Flash, but the buff can massively increase the efficiency with units that have slow reloads, typically other minigun users. One tech you can do, such as with Modernia, is to intentionally reload just as full burst is about to end to capitalize on the reload buff. Since as long as the reload is initiated, when the buff is active, it will last for the full process, since it's not possible for that reload bar to slow down in the middle of one. As you already guessed, this skill is best maxed out. It adds a lot of offense power to your team, and it's general enough to be helpful in almost every scenario. Skill 2. After landing 43 shots, Crown will enter a relaxed state, which increases her own HP potency. This really just refers to the efficacy of any healing effects that she receives. It doesn't actually do any healing by itself. This can stack up to 20 times, but notice that there is no expiry time. The stacks are indicated by an icon next to Crown, so if you just don't shoot, the amount of stacks will remain as is. But there's also a second portion to the skill. When all 20 stacks are active, they will be removed, and Crown will taunt and gain invincibility for 5 seconds. If you are really skilled, you could control when she gets this period of invul to block off nasty enemy attacks, namely the turret shots in Special Interception Altaisan. You can try keeping track of Crown's stacks to time it, but you will have to do it in a way where it activates before the enemies select a target. Most of the time, you won't have to worry about this, but the potential to negate all incoming damage can be pretty huge. She will also heal a small portion of her own HP when the stacks are removed. Now by itself, it's just a small welcome bonus. That is, until we take a look at the next portion. Whenever Crown receives a healing effect from any source, she will grant the whole party an attack damage up boost for 7 seconds. This is different from just an attack up, and it's one of the rarer and desirable types of damage buffs. This means in order for her to have this buff up, you'll need a healer in the team that can heal Crown. Not exactly hard to do since most teams have a healer already, but the catch here is that Crown must be the one to be the target specifically. Meaning if Crown is at full health, getting recovery effects can be a bit trickier. You may have noticed that certain effects in the game will select the leftmost ally to trigger, such as when you put the game on autoplay and the game selects a burst skill, it will always select the leftmost one. Or when Rapunzel resurrects an ally, it will always select the leftmost ally. This is no different when it comes to health recovery effects. For example, if we use Pepper as a healer, who heals the ally with the lowest health percentage, when everyone's health is full, she will default to healing the leftmost ally instead. This means ideally, you'll want to place Crown in the leftmost slot in a team, since as long as the recovery effect takes place, aka the green heal bubble, her buff will activate. As the skill doesn't explicitly say that Crown needs to be physically healed, only the effect is enough. Now, this is only apparent in a few cases, as I really didn't have a problem with upkeeping skill 2, since you're most likely gonna take some form of damage in a level one way or another. But I want to clarify that this is a mechanic that you should be aware of. Skill 2 inches more towards survivability, but it's useful just like Skill 1 and also deserves a rank 10 when you eventually get to it. Finally, the burst. Very simplistic, but also very helpful. Another dose of attack damage up, followed by a shield that protects all allies for 15 seconds. Even though a full burst is only 10 seconds, if you pair Crown with a CDR unit, this can be up for almost 100% of the time. Again, attack damage up is nothing to laugh at. It's a simple burst skill, but it hits all the right spots to be one of the best in her role. Burst skill modules tend to be a bit harder to come by, but as you get more of them, the burst would ideally be maxed out too. Now, despite Crown being a defender class, her damage is respectable enough that you absolutely can and should dedicate Overload gear towards. It's a little bit dusty, but I'm gonna pull up my good old Overload lines tier list, outlining how important it is to get each stat. So in the improvement tier, we're putting max ammo capacity and attack as always. Since Crown Skill 2 triggers for every 43 shots fired, if you can keep Crown firing for longer before having to reload, you can accumulate stacks slightly faster while dealing more damage. In the situational tier, I'm putting elemental damage once again. It's not a big boost by any means, but good for those that want to min-max. Everything else though goes in the useless tier. They serve as very minimal improvements to Crown's overall performance. And even though this tier list exists, I would still prioritize getting Overload lines for main damage dealer units first if you haven't already, as the effects of them are more pronounced. But you absolutely can still invest some of these pieces for Crown as well, as her personal damage, despite being a defender, is still quite decent. For the cube, ideally just like any other support unit, the first choice is the Resilience cube. However, if you invested in max ammo lines or really just don't want to divert that precious cube slot for a support unit, you can also use Bastion or Adjutant. There, I pronounced it right that time. Due to the increasing opportunity cost of cubes in general, you may have some trouble allocating your cubes to Crown, or having to manually swap some cube placements around when you place different teams. I wish they did something about this, but only time will tell. So in a nutshell, Crown is an overachiever that excels in both campaign and boss content. Let's take a look at the former first. The footage I'm using doesn't have that wide of a power requirement gap, but I've been slacking on story content recently, so this will do for now. You can go the boring route, where you simply replace the normal Type 2 unit like Senti or Novel with Crown. But we can go one step further. Something I'm sure you've seen some footage of by this point is that Crown puts Tia out of a job. Since Naga will buff core damage whenever a shield is given, and since Crown can satisfy that exact requirement, well, it's time to bench Tia. Just kidding though. If you do that, then Tia will be left without a partner, and your raid comps will become more awkward. In campaign content, however, this is an option available to you. A comp that puts in all the offense is a Red Hood team, where you will reserve one charge of Red Hood's Type 1 burst to boost the damage, then using the free first cooldown, try to close the level in 2 rotations. This is surprisingly doable, where you burst with a crowd clearer like Modernia first, then nuking the boss with Maxwell or Snow White when it appears on the second burst. For bosses, you'll want something with a bit more sustainability. The beauty with supporter units is that DPSs will depend on them, but they don't necessarily depend on the DPS. You can use any Type 1 CDR unit to fill in that gap in your comp, anyone will do, such as Leader, Dorothy, Killer D, Volume, and so on. The other soft requirement is a healer of some kind. Since Crown Skill 2 only heals her slightly whenever the 20 stacks are used, you'll want an ally that can recover health more consistently. The main candidates in a setup like this will be Naga or Rapunzel. Again, I will only do this if you don't have Tia at all, or don't plan on bringing the schoolgirls for a separate raid comp. The rest of the 2 slots are your DPSs. This can literally be anyone, preferably having elemental advantage to whatever it is that you're fighting. Another way to spin this is via an instant reload setup. Since we've established that if you reach 100% reload speed, each reload literally becomes instant. A core you can run in this case is, once again, a Type 1 CDR, then running normal Pravati. This will allow you to run some units that have slow reload speeds being their main bottleneck and completely negated, such as Modernia or Edgy Scarlet. The only issue I found with a comp like this is that it's really awkward to fit in a healer. So you better hope that Crown can soak up the damage when she's taunting and healing, or fight a boss where a healer is not required, such as in the current solo raid, assuming you don't do the challenge mode. Something I like to allude to when covering support units is that you can kind of imagine support units being the engine of a car, where the main DPS is the car itself. While you can put that engine in any car and it will run, if a car does not have an engine, it cannot go anywhere. Due to the more universal use of supporters, units like Crown will get automatic priority over others. So overall, what's the consensus on her? Well, just like the past trends for the past year, the newest Pilgrim for the 1.5 anniversary event absolutely deserves your attention. She is argued to be the current best in slot Type 2 supporter in all sorts of types of content. Well, all except for PvP, I guess. Since she is also a defender and does not benefit as much from limit breaks versus DPSs, as a load spender, you just have to snag one copy. Well, to be fair, you're typically not gonna hear me recommending pulling for limit breaks for most units anyways. The most expensive part is diverting a lot of your skill modules into maxing out her entire kit, because it's just that good. All the way from attack, reload speed, and shielding abilities. I wish I could hide this better, but Crown is a 5 out of 5 unit for me, and I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way too. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this quick return to form on the newest Pilgrim unit. I am currently losing my mind playing Tower of Fantasy and working on a few other projects. Stay tuned for more Nikke and other gacha related content, and as always, have fun with the game.